Welcome to the very first episode of Mission ImPROPable, the video podcast that will be analysing and bringing you our favourite NFL player prop bets each week. My name is Lewis. I am from Fantasy Football Down Under, and joining me is Luca from Sideline Spice. Luca, how are you, mate?
I'm very well, thank you, Lewis. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm glad we could start this. We've been talking about doing a bit of a project together for a few weeks, and it's good to get this off the ground. Unfortunately, your co-host from Sideline Spice, Ryan, couldn't join us today. He's got some lame excuse about working and earning money and paying bills, something like that.
Ridiculous.
So, unbelievable.
If he was better at prop bets, he wouldn't need to be working in the first place.
Absolutely right. Absolutely. And that's what we intend to do. We hope to try and all win some money together. But first, Luca, where can we find you on social media, you and the Sideline Spice team? Okay,
so you can find us. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and our handle's nice and easy. It's all the same. So it'll be facebook.com/sidelinespice, twitter.com/sidelinespice, Instagram handle Sideline Spice. And you can find my individual Twitter at SidelineSpiceLD.
There we go. Nice and easy. So this is the first show. And the plan each week will be bringing you, between sort of 8 to 10 different prop bets that we all like for the week. We'll be putting our own money on the wagers. So we'll be putting our money where our mouth is. And then we'll be coming back the following weeks and seeing how we did before we give you the next one. So if you make money, we make money, and everyone goes home happy. A bit of disclaimer at the start. Of course, we're not going to be going 100%. So if you think that, you should probably close the video and log off now. You're probably the kind of dickhead who tweets at fantasy football analysts when they get a start-sit question wrong. At the end of the day, this is your responsibility, but we're all in this together, and we're all trying to have a good time and make a couple of bucks along the way. So we may as well get into it. Luca, who have you got for your first prop this week?
All right, so I have a love-hate relationship with this man in fantasy, but this week I'm hoping for my prop bet's sake he struggles. So it's Peyton Barber is my very first prop bet, and the bet is to get under 45.5 rushing yards. So he averages about 52 rushing yards a game, but he is playing the Baltimore Ravens this week. So for those who are not in the know, the Ravens are the toughest matchup for a running back in the NFL this year in terms of production. So from a fantasy perspective, I think they allow 6 fantasy points per game under the mean for a given running back. According to player profile as well, Tampa's been playing behind for the majority of the season in games, which means the game script also doesn't favour Barber very well. So, when his average is only around 50 a game and the over-under is 45 against an elite run defence, I tend to err on the side of the under there.
Yeah, I completely agree with that logic. And like you said, Tampa's been playing from behind a lot. Their defence is absolute trash. So, yeah, I'm a fan of that. And he against such a tough defence, he might struggle. My first one, I'm going back to my old faithful, Larry Fitzgerald, future Hall of Famer, and I think he's going to have a very good this week. His line for receptions is over 4.5, so you need at least 5 receptions to win this. He's paying $1.88. Last week, he had 9 receptions with Christian Kirk out. He's gone for the season to IR. And positive for him, like I said, very good matchup, is that he's going 64% of his routes are from the slot. So he's going to be matched up with Brian Poole for the Falcons, who plays over 53% of his snaps there. And on those 53% in the slot, he is allowing 3.5 receptions per game. So a really nice matchup for Larry Fitzgerald this week.
Yeah, Fitzgerald's that guy that just keeps on chugging along when you think he's done. And the Falcons have a notoriously suspect pass defense. So I like the over on that as well.
Who have you got next?
So next up, this is actually probably the one I'm most confident about of my 3. So I have Derek Carr to get over 23.5 completions against the Bengals. So he's actually surpassed that in 8 out of the 13 games he's played this season, including the past 2. So despite the Raiders' struggles, Carr hasn't been as bad as his team record suggests. Now, Cincinnati are about 29th in passing yards allowed per game this season. And Carr averages 35 attempts per game, so he'd only need to complete 68% of his passes in an average game. And he's actually sitting on 69% for the season. And coupled with player profile, loving the Raiders receiving core, they're actually the 8th most efficient receiving core in football. It's not much of a stretch to think that Carr meets his season averages against a bad pass defense. Like I said, 29th in the league.
Yeah, and his average depth of target over the whole season has been quite low as well. So he's not making those risky completions. He's going for the short and intermediate, high percentage throws. So good call there on Derek Carr. My second one, I'm actually going back to the same game. I'm going to the Cardinals-Falcons game. Ordinarily, we would like to try and bring you as many games as possible because, if an offense absolutely tanks, you don't want to be over-invested in any one particular game. But this one was just too good to pass over. And that's David Johnson over 4 receptions, paying $1.79. And this is just, to me, the easiest bet on my list today. The Atlanta Falcons have surrendered the most receptions to opposing running backs every year since Dan Quinn joined the team. So in 2015, there was 118 receptions, 2016, 109, 2017, 107. And this year, they're 97 so far, and they're actually on pace for the most, 119. And obviously, in combination with Kirk being out, his DJ's market share went up. He had 10 targets last week. He gets 7 or 8 receptions. So 4 receptions seems a really low line for me. And I suppose that's kind of noted in the line or the odds rather being only $1.79. But still, even at $1.79, I think that's excellent value to return some money there on DJ.
Yeah, honestly, like you said, out of all the ones you've got listed, I think that's by far your safest bet. I'm probably going to put money on that as well because DJ is a pass-catching machine.
He is indeed. Who's your next guy?
All right, so I've taken an obscure player for my third one. This is Mission ImPROPable after all. And, finding a player that not many people have heard of makes this all fun. So Anthony Ferkser, tight end from the Tennessee Titans, under 35.5 yards receiving. So first of all, he's cleared that mark in 3 of his last 4 games. So on the surface, the line looks kind of reasonable. Yep. But there's a few things working against him, I feel. So number one, he only has a snap share of about 25%. He's never received more than 4 targets in a game. Doesn't actually have an incomplete, he's caught every target that's come his way in his career so far. So that's obviously likely to regress. He hasn't run more than 10 routes in a game max. And he also spends about 40% of his time in the slot, where he'll be covered by Michael Thomas. So not the Saints Michael Thomas, Giants Michael Thomas, who actually
very talented if he's
multi-talented. I'm sure he could if he wanted to. But this Michael Thomas actually has one of the highest coverage grades in the NFL, according to PFF, over the past month. I think it's over 90. So he's been quietly a secret weapon for the New York Giants. And so with that combination of factors, I really like the under on this one.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would never have even considered that. Certainly a well-reasoned line. And yeah, it could be a potential trap there, considering he has cleared that target. I think he said 3 games in a row, or three of his last 4. 3 of the last 4 weeks. Yeah, interesting. That's a real interesting one. The next one I'm going with, I'm going to another pass catching running back, and that's Theo Riddick. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't find a line for his receptions anywhere. I think maybe because it would just be a very difficult line to set because he gets so many. But over 34.5 receiving yards. Paying $1.88, and I think he could quite easily clear that because they're going up against the Buffalo Bills, and team targets running backs against the Bills at that 8th highest rate in the league. And the slot receiver Bruce Ellington for the Lions is out this week, as is Kerryon Johnson again. So there's definitely volume to be had for Theo Riddick. And over the last 6 weeks, he's averaged 6 targets a game and averaged about 38 receiving yards per game. So he's clearing that on a fairly regular basis, the 34.5-yard mark. And just given the lack of weapons around, like I said, Johnson, Ellington out, I think they'll be looking for Theo Riddick, and you might see him lined up in the slot as well, because we know LeGarrette Blount doesn't catch passes out of the backfield, really.
Yeah, but LeGarrette Blount has hands of stone. And Stafford has always loved his pass-catching running backs over the years. Reggie Bush before Riddick as well. So, yeah, I think that's a very, very safe bet as well. Or a safer bet as a line bet can be. Yeah,
exactly. You never feel too confident, placing your hard-earned dollars on the Lions, but this is one that I feel I feel okay about.
Yeah, I think it's a very solid one. Speaking of solid bets, this is probably the most established player out of our lines, I feel. But he's been a little bit underrated this season. I think he slipped a bit under the radar. Rob Gronkowski for over 54.5 yards and is actually paying at $1.93. So the odds makers think that he will fall under that. What they haven't realised is that the Steelers are his opponents, the team that is notoriously destroyed by the Patriots each and every time they match up. And Gronk's a big part of that. He's never got under 72 yards in a game against the Steelers. He averages an absurd 110 yards a game. Now, while I don't bank on him to be clearing the triple figure mark anytime soon, he did just get 100 yards off Miami, which shows that he is at his healthiest that he's been in quite some time this season.
Absolutely.
And the Steelers, their defense has improved a lot, but that's actually been more their pass rush. Their secondary is still a bit shaky, giving up the 8th most yards to tight ends this year, and Gronk is still one of the best in the business. Even this crippled older version of Gronk is still a legitimate weapon. So I like him to clear that mark.
Yeah, I love that. And considering, like you did mention, $1.93, I feel that would be the one of these lines to really load up your units on, because, yeah, he just loves playing against the Steelers. He has 3 touchdown games in his career against them, which is absurd. And yeah, he's in good form. And all the jokes aside of him not turning and playing to safety position anymore after his horrific attempt at trying to tackle Kenyon Drake, he looked good against the Dolphins. He took a few hits, some to his lower back as well, which you always hold your breath as a Patriots fan. But he looked good, and he was moving pretty well. And a 70% healthy Gronk or an 80% is better than pretty much every tight end in the league, with the exception of the 2 or 3 at the elite tier. So Gronk is very much in play this week, and I'll be needing him in fantasy in a few leagues. So I'm hoping for a big day for Gronk.
Yeah, best of luck with that.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm my final guy for this week, coming off a historic game. We all saw him run a train on the Jacksonville Jaguars, is Derrick Henry. And, I'm not just putting him in there because of recency bias and he had such a great game and automatically he's going to be a stud. But the line is quite low, over 51.5 rushing yards, paying $1.93. So you like that, the same money as Gronk. And in the 4 of the past 5 weeks, his opponents, the New York Giants, have given up at least 118 yards rushing. And the only game they didn't was against Washington. And we saw what happened there. They were down 3 or 4 scores before they could even blink. And still, despite the game script being against them, rushed for 84 yards against the Giants defense. Trading away Snacks Harrison has killed the interior line there. And we all saw what Derrick Henry did against Jacksonville. And based off of that, you think the coaching staff are going to hand him the rock and give him every opportunity to continue to build on this momentum. And fortunately for him, the Titans do love to run the football. They run it at the 2nd highest rate in the NFL, second only to Seattle Seahawks. So really good opportunity for Henry to get the volume. He has a very nice matchup. And coming in hot, you think he's going to be quite confident. He's built up a head of steam. I think 51.5 yards is a fairly low line for him to cross.
Yeah, I had no idea actually that the Titans had run the ball that often this season. And just from the eye test alone, I watched the Jaguars-Titans game. I subject myself to that blowout. But it wasn't so much the fact that Derrick Henry ran for a lot of yards. It was the way he ran as well. He was, making quick cuts and running downhill and being the force of nature that we all thought he could be going into this season. And I think this is a case of Vegas being a little bit hesitant to write him off as a 1-week wonder, which is why they're a bit slow to bump up the over and under lines. But I think that's a perfect time to get on board and get ahead of the curve. So I'm with you. I think it's a great bet to take.
Yeah, absolutely. So that'll do it, guys, in terms of the lines that we've got. A quick refresher, we've gone Peyton Barber under 45.5 yards, Derek Carr over 23.5 completions, Anthony Ferkser under 35.5 yards receiving, Larry Fitzgerald over 4.5 receptions, David Johnson over 4 receptions, Theo Riddick over 34.5 yards, Rob Gronkowski over 54.5 yards receiving, and Derrick Henry over 51.5 yards rushing. So good luck this week. I'll be laying some money on these wagers. I would encourage you to do the same. We feel they're pretty good. We spent our time researching these. They weren't just arbitrarily pulled out of a hat. And yeah, we'll be back next week. We'll be doing the same format. Hopefully Ryan will be released from his employer and he'll be able to be joining us on the video. And we'll review how we went. And, you know, how many, I think we gave you 8. I think if we hit on 6 out of those 8, I'd call it a damn good day. So we'll look forward to reviewing that next week. And, you know, as always, gamble responsibly, folks, and good luck.
Yeah, good luck, guys. I hope that the punting gods are with you all. And by the way, if you have your own prop bets that you love or are diehard about, please feel free to share them with us on social media, because we like to hear from you guys as well. So it's not just between a back and forward between us. I mean, we're all in this punting game together. So share us your hot tips.
Yeah, absolutely. You find a line that you really like, tweet it at us, get it as on Facebook. Yeah, absolutely. So, Luca, absolute pleasure. This was really fun. I'm glad we were able to do it, and I can't wait for next week.
Neither can I. Thanks for having me, mate.
Cheers, mate. Bye.